Details of the government's Happy Hong Kong campaign. Cathay Pacific to give away 27,000 round-trip tickets from Hong Kong to 26 countries or regions for free. And a mass airlift of evacuees now underway in Sudan. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The government announced that the Happy Hong Kong campaign will kick off this Saturday. Authorities are spending $20 million on the project with the aim of boosting local consumption and morale in the post-pandemic city. Mo Singai has more.
To give a boost to the economy and the mood of residents, the government today announced details of the Happy Hong Kong initiative. There will be 12 major events held throughout the campaign. The first event to be held is Cinema Day 2023 on Saturday, which allows the public to enjoy films in cinemas at a fixed price of $30 per ticket. Fancy some international delicacies? This weekend, a large-scale weekend gourmet marketplace will also be held in Wan Chai, with authorities distributing 100,000 free tickets to the public. Financial Secretary Paul Chan said while it's no easy task to make everyone happy, he hopes the campaign will give people confidence in the city's economy.
At the end of the day, whether people are happy or not, it is indeed very emotional and very kind of personal experiences. But we would like to organize as many as different kind of activities as possible to suit the interests of the different sectors of the community. If we are able to sustain the economic growth as well as giving people the confidence and the sense of happiness in the city, that would be most important.
Not only is Hong Kong ready to boost the local residents' spending power, it is also prepared and looking forward to receiving more international visitors. Last Saturday, the Thai Select Carnival took place in Lan Kwai Fong, the first big event in the area since COVID. Streets were packed with people. Alan Zeman, chairman of Lan Kwai Fong Group, said the city needs more international events to propel it going forward.
Going forward, for Hong Kong itself, this is very, very important. The more events we have, the stronger Hong Kong will be. Because since COVID, since January, when the opening of the borders started, I think that we can see a real increase in tourism.
Zeman also mentioned his confidence in the SAR's pathway to regaining the status of an international tourism city.
The best thing is Hello Hong Kong, seeing is believing. And that's really come to Hong Kong and see for yourself. In all my years here, I think it's never been better. I would estimate another quarter before you'll see the figures of what they were in the past. But definitely, they're definitely traveling much more, and Hong Kong is back on the route map.
Lan Kwai Fong is not only a landmark for nightlife and restaurants in Hong Kong, but it is also a historic area formerly devoted to hawkers before the Second World War. Mo Singai, TVB News.
Meanwhile, Cathay Pacific Airways is offering some 27,000 economy class round-trip tickets from Hong Kong to overseas destinations for free. The giveaway is part of the Hello Hong Kong initiative. It's worth noting the registration website is only available in simplified Chinese characters. To qualify for registration, you must be a Cathay member aged 18 or above. Registrants have until April 30th to apply for the lucky draw. They can pick a preferred destination from 46 cities in 26 countries and regions, including the UK, France, Japan, and Singapore. Ticket winners will be informed via email on May 3rd. The MTR will add 22 more high-speed trains per day running between West Kowloon and Futian stations. The new arrangement will be enforced from Thursday to May 4th to cope with the expected surge in passengers during the Labor Day Golden Week holiday on the mainland. During that period, there will be an extra train departing from West Kowloon and Futian in Shenzhen every hour between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Passengers can make reservations through the mainland ticketing portal 12306 or purchase tickets at the stations. The Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority has reportedly completed reviewing the maximum and minimum income levels for the city's pension scheme. Sources say the government is considering the review report. Under the current mechanism, the upper limit for mandatory MPF contributions could be almost doubled, a move that would impact hundreds of thousands of employees. Sharon Tang reports.
Johnny now earns over $30,000 and pays at most $1,500 a month for his Mandatory Provident Fund, or MPF. The 35-year-old has had 5 different jobs and has a total of 5 MPF accounts, but most of them are losing money. The last time MPF contribution levels were adjusted was in 2014. Sources say the Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority has completed a review. According to the Labour Earnings and Price Index, the changes between 2014 and 2023 could lead to a change to the maximum income level for the 5% contribution rule from the current $30,000 per month to $55,000. Currently, employers and employees are both required to make mandatory contributions of 5% of an employee's relevant income. Applying the possible changes to the formula, the upper limit for mandatory contributions will be raised from $1,500 to $2,750, affecting some 570,000 employees around town. Johnny said he would be very unwilling to accept such proposals, adding it will be like pouring money into these blood-sucking funds. Hilton owns a tech company. Some 30 people work for the company's Hong Kong branch, where staff are getting paid $30,000 per month on average. He said, if the proposal takes place, I will consider restructuring the company or relocating resources from Hong Kong to Singapore or Greater Bay Area cities. Finance expert Billy Mack thinks there is an urgent need to adjust the MPF given the current inflation and market prices. But lawmaker Leung Man Kwong disagrees, saying it's better to implement the changes by stages or have a cooling-off period. He also suggested the government introduce policies to help the public invest in medical schemes or housing before retirement to better protect themselves. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Overseas, a mass airlift of evacuees has been taking place in Sudan. European nations and other countries have been extracting citizens from Khartoum as fighting continues. David Garrett reports.
The latest footage from Khartoum. The week finished how it started, with violence in Sudan. In truth, a truce planned for Eid never got started. Overhead shots from earlier on Sunday show a city on fire. The armies of 2 warring generals continue to fight for control of Sudan's future. The leader of the paramilitary group, the RSF, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, has rarely been seen until now. The man filming seems excited as he walks to the vehicle. Dagalo, wearing military clothes, is sitting in the front seat. He proposed a ceasefire last week, but the boss of the army, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, never publicly agreed, and violence continues. The world's leading powers have put diplomacy to one side as they focus on getting their nationals to safety. In Djibouti, a French military aircraft prepares in the early hours of Sunday to rescue its citizens. On board are armed Marines ready to guide them to safety. Governments were given an assurance fighting would cease while extractions took place. These people, believed to be French embassy workers, board the plane and leave Khartoum. Italy's Ministry of Defence says it has got citizens and aid workers out successfully. These images show nuns and aid workers being taken out on a military aeroplane. Over 100 Germans came back to Berlin on Monday. The Luftwaffe has flown out 311 people in total. The EU says the safety of Europeans is paramount, but is trying to find a diplomatic way out of the fighting.
We have to continue pushing for a political settlement. We cannot afford that Sudan, which is a very populated country, implodes, because it will be sending shockwaves around the whole Africa. Yes, I've been talking with all the neighbors, all friends, even with the 2 generals in commanding the forces. And the international community message is the same. You have to stop the war.
The United States and Britain conducted a joint operation. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken watched in real time in Washington, D.C.
We couldn't have done this without the support of the French and the United States, where in our joint planning we helped each other. And I think it's really important that we recognise that this has been an international effort.
Arab countries have been airlifting people out of Khartoum too. Hundreds of Jordanians, Palestinians, Iraqis and Syrians touched down in the Jordanian capital, Amman. Some spoke of dodging bullets on dangerous roads and thanked God for their safe arrival. David Garrett, TVB News.
Still ahead, government officials and lawmakers return home from a 4-day visit to the Greater Bay Area. The Foreign Ministry says China respects the status of former Soviet republics as sovereign states. And in Kenya, 58 bodies found in an investigation into a starvation cult. Welcome back. SAR government officials and lawmakers have concluded their 4-day tour of the Greater Bay Area. Earlier today, the group visited a sewage treatment plant and met with various provincial leaders. Jackie Lin reports.
In the last leg of the Greater Bay Area tour, the two groups of lawmakers and officials wrapped up their respective itineraries in Dongguan and Foshan and met in Guangzhou. There they visited the Lijiao sewage treatment plant. Chief Executive John Lee watched on with rapt attention as staffers briefed the delegation about how these treatment tanks operate. Built 17 meters deep underground to reduce odor and noise, the water purification plant is run in a fully enclosed space. And that also helps minimize the impact of ozone from the wastewater. Chief Executive John Lee also revealed he had dim sum Panyu style in the morning with Mayor of the Guangzhou Municipal Government Guo Yongheng. He said he felt even more at home as his family hailed from Panyu District. The group then attended a luncheon hosted by the mayor and Lin Keqing, secretary of Guangzhou Provincial Committee of the Communist Party. They were introduced to the development of Nansha District and the latest collaboration in development between Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangdong. Their very last stop meeting Huang Kunming, Party Secretary of Guangdong Provincial Committee and Guangdong Provincial Governor Wang Weizhong. All attendees had to be COVID screened via PCR tests the night before and keep their masks on, except for during this photo-taking moment. The group returned to Hong Kong via the high-speed rail. Summarizing the trip, the CE said the 4-day tour attended by principal officials and 83 lawmakers reflected the solidarity between the executive and legislative branches, which are of one heart and one mind. He also underscored the urgency for Hong Kong to catch up alongside mainland cities after years of chaos and filibustering from the city's legislature. That's to help Hong Kong become a frontrunner that stands firm among world cities. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Since Hong Kong dropped its mask mandate about 2 months ago, several of the city's medical societies have announced that the SAR is experiencing a rise in pneumococcal infections. The organization suggested that authorities could tackle the increasing infections by purchasing a new generation of vaccines and urging the elderly and young children to get the jab. Timothy Lee reports.
After 3 years of the mask mandate, Hong Kong's overall immunity to infections has weakened, and residents have become more susceptible to the seasonal flu. Medical authorities have also reminded residents to remain cautious about the increasing number of pneumococcal infections, which could lead to pneumonia, ear infections, and could even be fatal. This morning, 4 medical societies, including the Hong Kong Society for Infectious Diseases and the Hong Kong Pediatric Society, revealed the latest online survey on residents' awareness of the pneumococcus. They found that of the 3,600 surveyed adults, the majority of the population underestimates the lethality of diseases caused by pneumococcal infections. Around 80% said they were not vaccinated and that only 25% have the desire to get the jab. Infectious diseases specialist Dr. Ivan Hung stressed that the government could incentivize residents to get the pneumococcal vaccine by offering more vaccination subsidies.
With regards to the government subsidy scheme for vaccine. Currently, the pneumococcal vaccine is being covered for the high-risk group. I think the important thing, the message here is that if the government could extend the coverage to those 50 years or above, then that will be best. I think it's important that to encourage individuals not only to get the flu jab because of the relaxation of the infection control measures, or taking off masks and also more traveling.
Between 2016 and 2020, around half of all pneumococcal patients and over 60% of child patients were infected with the serotype 3 pneumococcal disease, the most common form of such infections in the city. The Hong Kong Pediatric Society suggested that the government could purchase the 15-valent pneumococcal conjugate vaccine to boost the immunity of the city's younger demographic. The four medical societies suggest that in order to confront the pneumococcal threat, the government could consider subsidizing vaccinations for those aged 50 or above. They also urged authorities to purchase more effective vaccines to protect vulnerable groups against the serotype 3 pneumococcal disease. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Before a meeting today, several EU foreign ministers said recent remarks by China's ambassador to France questioning the sovereignty of former Soviet republics such as Ukraine are totally unacceptable. A group of around 80 members of the European Parliament have now called on France to declare Liu a persona non grata. When asked about the comments, the foreign ministry in Beijing said China respects the status of former Soviet republics as sovereign states after the collapse of the USSR. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Asked about his position on whether Crimea was part of Ukraine or not, Chinese ambassador to Paris Liu Xiaoye said in an interview aired on French television on Friday that historically it was part of Russia and had been offered to Ukraine by former Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. Liu added these ex-USSR countries don't have actual status in international law because there is no international agreement to materialize their sovereign status. In a letter, a group of around 80 MEPs have now called on France to declare Liu a persona non grata. The letter argued that the statements violate international law and should be considered as a threat to the security of France's European partner nations. Liu's statement was also criticized by several EU foreign ministers before a meeting today. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky called the remarks totally unacceptable and said he hoped the bosses of this ambassador will make these things straight. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said the 27-nation bloc would, at Monday's meeting, assess and recalibrate its strategy towards China, and that the Chinese ambassador to France's comments would be part of the discussion. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning set out the official stance of the government during a regular news conference in Beijing when asked if China stood behind the envoy's remarks. She said the Chinese side respects the status of the member states as sovereign states after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Mao said China respects the sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity of all countries and upholds the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter. Asked if China recognizes Ukraine as a sovereign state, Mao said China's position on this issue is objective and fair. She stated the Soviet Union was a federal state and externally as a whole it had the status of being a subject of international law, so conversely after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the various republics have the status of sovereign states. Dan Orell, TVB News.
Meantime, Kenyan police have exhumed the bodies of 58 people thought to be part of a Christian cult who believed they would go to heaven if they starved themselves to death. The leader of the Good News International Church, named as Paul Mackenzie, is under arrest. It followed a tip-off that suggested the existence of shallow graves belonging to his followers. A forested area of 800 acres is sealed off and under investigation for possible further exhumations. Earlier this month, police rescued 15 members of the church who had been told by the pastor to starve themselves in order to meet Jesus. 4 of those people died before they reached hospital. The pastor had been arrested twice before in relation to the deaths of children. Ironically, Mackenzie is on hunger strike in police custody. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly.